Okay, we are live on YouTube. Everything is good. Mr. Mayor, the meeting is yours. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help.
Good, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the regular City Council meeting scheduled for Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. It will be a virtual Zoom meeting. And at this time, can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of
flag
the
of the United States of America and to the republic
and to the
for
republic
which it
for
stands,
which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. All right, very good. Madam Clerk, can you call roll, please?
Mayor Beagle,
I am present and I am attending this meeting from Wixom, Michigan, County of Oakland, State of Michigan.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
I am present and I am attending remotely from Wixom, Michigan, Oakland County.
Councilmember Behrman,
Present. I'm in Wixom, Oakland County, State of Michigan.
Councilmember Gotcho,
I'm present, attending remotely from Wixom in Oakland County, Michigan.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox,
I am present, attending remotely from my home in Wixom, Michigan, Oakland County.
Councilmember Sharp,
present, attending remotely from Bel Air, Michigan, Antrim County.
Councilmember Smiley, quorum present.
Thank you. Do we have any changes or additions to the agenda tonight as presented? City Manager Brown?
No, Your Honor, but I should have mentioned earlier that Rob Smiley did call and let me know that he was going to potentially be a few minutes late, so we expect him to join the meeting shortly.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Mayor?
From the council, Councilmember Grenlund Fox?
Yes, I'd like to add an update on the fire department recruitment plan and recruitment efforts, please.
All right, we'll add that to new business number 5, and we'll call it a discussion of fire department recruitment and staffing. Is that good?
Thank you. Yes.
All right, let the record note that Councilmember Smiley is in attendance at 7:03. Good evening, Councilmember Smiley.
Thanks. Hello.
All right, next up is the approval of minutes. We've got one set of minutes to approve tonight. That's from the regular city council meeting of January 26, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Do we have any additions, corrections, deletions? Can you take over my
Yes.
computer just went?
So I'm going to see if we're going to have an issue here. The mayor's computer connection just took a turn for the worse here, so we're going to try to figure that out. We can have Deputy Mayor Resnick step up to the mic here and take over for the meeting here for a moment. That would be great.
All right. Okay. Second order of business is correspondence. Today we have a notice.
Do we need to vote on that?
Oh, we are in the minutes. Sorry. We had
There was no
Yeah.
discussion, no changes, so I'll do a roll call vote. Deputy Mayor Resnick,
yes.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gotcho,
Yes.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Yes.
Mayor Beagle. 6 or 7, yes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Second order of business is correspondence. We have one letter. It's a notice of the hearing for the gas customers of Consumers Energy Company, case number U-20814. Next order of business is a call to the public. This is the first call to the public for agenda items. The rules for a public call to the public is the public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence and again immediately after new business. First call to the public immediately after correspondence is limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council. All comments made by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do we have anyone who would like to make call to the public? And first call to the public is agenda items only. Remember, you press *9 on your cell phone if you'd like to raise your hand.
Yeah, we'll give it a moment to see if anybody raises their hand. Again, a reminder, press *9 on your phone to raise your hand to address the council. We'll give it just another moment.
Okay,
No one has raised their hand.
We'll close the first call to the public. Next order of business is city manager's reports. First one is the fire monthly report for December 2020. Any questions for Chief Roberts? I have one, Chief. We
Yes, sir.
had a specialty training session for CNG vehicle fires in the month of December. Are we going to be getting specialty training for BEV or battery electric vehicles as well?
We have had some preliminary training on it. And if we are notified that some's available and economical to bring into the firefighters, we will for sure. Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments? All right, second report is the police monthly report for December 2020. Any questions? All right, and the last one, quarterly budget and investment report, December 2020. Any questions from Marilyn? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the end of unfinished or new business. Do I have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Support.
Councilman Grundman Fox, you have a question?
I do. I thought I could just ask a question, but it sounds like I have to remove the whole item, correct?
We'd have to remove the item and make it new business number 6.
Okay. I would like to remove the recommendation to set a public hearing for regarding the community block grant program.
Okay. And that is the agenda item is just for setting the public hearing date, but we'll move that to new business item number 6, recommendation to set a public hearing for February 23rd to solicit input regarding the utilization of the 2021 Community Block Grant Development Program allocation in the amount of $51,165. We had a motion, a second. Anything else? All right, roll call vote.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gacho,
Yes.
Councilmember Glenn Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Yes.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Resnick, for taking over there. I don't know what happened, but lost everything and had to reboot. So we're back and we're good now.
All right.
Um,
Got the one consent agenda item is moved to new business item number 6.
If I got that, thank you.
Right.
All right, we have no unfinished business for tonight, so we'll move on to new business. With new business number 1 is a recommendation to approve a development agreement with Wixom Logistics Park LLC for 104 acres of the former Ford Wixom property, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement with city administration to add final exhibits and record the agreement as appropriate. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. City Manager Brown, do you want to give us an update on this, please?
Yeah, so as per the report that's been provided to council, we've had prior action by city council that resulted in a rezoning of 104.4 acres of the former Ford Wixom plant property from M2 General Industrial to GPUD Gateway Planned Unit Development, and also the approval of the preliminary site plan as it was submitted previously. Both actions were taken at the January 26th council meeting. At the time of those deliberations, the development agreement had not yet been finalized or had just been finalized right before the time of your meeting. Because of that and because of the complexity of the agreement, we did not move forward with the development agreement at your January 26th meeting. So we are bringing that forward for mayor and council review, consideration, and action today. The development agreement is something that's part of a GPUD type of development, details the conditions for development approval, specific requirements like timing of improvements, phasing, duration of approvals, financial guarantees, a variety of things. This is, as I said, part of the requirements of GPUD. The city attorney worked with our planning staff, Kelly McIntyre and Carmen Aventini from CIB Planning, as well as me and other people at the city in developing the attached development agreement, which has been provided to you. And I mentioned this offline, it wasn't part of the report, but the number of changes was such that it was kind of difficult to follow using track changes. So we provided just a final document without the track changes highlighted because there were so many that they kind of became meaningless, frankly. So you just had the final version without the track changes provided for mayor and council's review in anticipation of the meeting. The last thing that I want to say on that is the recording of the agreement as appropriate is in the recommendation and the subject of the report. That is put in there. We're basically looking for approval of the basic document subject to Planning Commission doing a final site plan review at their meeting where it's anticipated to take place on March 1st of 2021. Subject to the outcome of those additional feedback, that additional feedback from the Planning Commission, the exhibits to the agreement would be finalized, and then the entire agreement would then be recorded officially at that point. So we're asking for approval of the basic document for you tonight so that the mayor would be ready to sign it when everything is finalized through Planning Commission. The exhibits are attached, but this initial step would just be to approve the base development agreement, subject to some additional details being worked out and provided in the exhibits. So hopefully that's fairly clear. If there's any questions on it, I'd be happy to answer it. We have Kelly McIntyre on the line as well, if you will, for any questions that might come up in relation to the development agreement. This is an important development for the city, something we want to make sure that we get everything as right as possible from our perspective. Mayor and council had provided some feedback at the prior meetings that you discussed this potential project. And there was a summary document that was provided to Flint Development, the development people that are proposing the project. And they provided feedback that was also in turn provided to mayor and council today. And there are already revisions that are reflected in the plans that have been submitted to the city. We just received them yesterday, the final plans from the development team. So we expect to take approximately 2 weeks of time to get in depth into these very detailed plans on a very huge project and make sure that we do our due diligence and make sure that things that we were seeking are reflected. The things that mayor and council had requested be addressed are reflected. And then we would be taking it to Planning Commission at the March 1st meeting for their final action on the final GPUD site plan. And then potentially would have the $70 million phase 1 development ready to roll with all of the documents passed and moved on, including the development agreement. So that's all I had. I can add more detail, or Kelly can add more detail. And we have many members of Flint Development's development team on our meeting with us this evening as well, ready to speak about any questions that might come up from their perspective.
Very good. Councilmember Cacho.
Thank you. There was a question, because I asked it, I know there was a question last time regarding how often buildings would be painted. I believe the answer was every 5 to 7 years. And in looking through this, I don't see any specific timelines written out. Are we allowed to add something like that? Is there a negative aspect to writing something that buildings have to be painted a minimum once every 5 years, just to ensure that things are kept pleasing to the community?
Kelly, you want to take that?
Kelly, yeah.
Yes, I'm actually looking for it. I know that we addressed it, and that it be maintained in an appropriate condition. I'm kind of scanning through it right now just to see if we actually put a number.
Yeah, so I kind of looked under the maintenance obligations when it came to that, and it's the only timeframes listed is if we as a city find a deficiency, we can issue a notice, then it has to be corrected, and then everybody can argue about it or fix it, and then maybe we all go to court or whatever. There's nothing that says anybody's painting every 5 years at a minimum.
Okay.
I thought I saw something on the summary.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And it made it tough because the document we got, I don't think was searchable in my read through on the PDF reader.
Trying to remember.
Yeah, I don't see that in my notes here.
Kelly, do you want me to step
Yeah,
in?
yes, Kevin, please.
Yeah, I was just
Sorry,
gonna-
I'm trying
yeah, I
to
was
look,
just
but
gonna
if
ask
you-
if somebody from the
if you know,
development
let
team
me
would
know.
wanna.
Sure. Mayor, members of the
Thank
council,
you.
record Kevin Lee with the Polsonelli Law Firm representing Flint Development. So we do have very detailed maintenance obligations and requirements set forth in this agreement in section 13. And I believe it's subsection 1310 that speaks to the issue in question, requires repainting as needed, as well as applying sealant every 5 years, which would be at a minimum,
Thank
but
you,
we're
Kevin.
held to a higher, a higher standard to keep them in accordance with other Class A buildings in the area.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Councilmember Cacho?
Not unless there's other council members that have any.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
First of all, thank you so much, Flint Development, as well as Kelly, for taking a lot of our suggestions into consideration, especially some of the phase 1 ones. So just to be clear, then the phase 1 has to be completed within 2 years, and then subsequent phases, I don't know, initially we talked about just phase 1 and 2, but it said subsequent phases have to be completed within a 5-year time frame. Is that correct? And is that 5 years after the completion of phase 1, or is that 5 years from the development agreement?
It is from site plan approval. So for final site plan approval. Let's see. Kevin, do you know the specific one? I apologize. I'm trying to go through the 20 pages here.
Yeah, I believe the 2 years are tied to the initial, and it is confusing. So I apologize for that with the terminology, but we're talking about the 2 years goes to what I would describe as phase one, which is the first two buildings A and B, that will be constructed concurrently. And Kelly's correct. That's tied to final GPUD site plan approval. The subsequent phases, which I would describe as phase two, is building the latter three of the 5 buildings. Those have to be, construction has to commence within 5 years of the date of this agreement, I believe. Let me make sure. Yes, it's from tied to execution of this agreement, which would be here shortly after, if we're fortunate enough to get your guys' approval this evening.
So technically, a phase 2 could involve just one building as long as a phase 3 completed the rest of the buildings within that 5-year time frame, correct?
Yes, I think the way it's worded is such that you have to, that 5-year applies to all 3 of the subsequent buildings. But it wouldn't, for example, if we ended up building the first one of those final 3 and then did not achieve that milestone on the final 2 buildings, our site plan approval would become void only with respect to those 2 that we didn't meet. So we're not going back on an already constructed building, obviously.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lee, for the clarification. Thanks.
And just to clarify something, it does refer to construction commencing. It's not completion of the building. It's construction commencing.
Commencing, yeah.
Any other questions from council, concerns? Councilmember Gacho.
Thank you. In terms of concerns, I guess just looking at the timing of this, and I know Flint wants to get this closed, their purchase closed, and I can appreciate that. But right now, I feel like we're approving a development agreement before we have final site plan approval. And I'm not sure that we've done that in the past, or maybe we have, but it doesn't come to mind when we may have done that. And considering that this is probably going to be the largest or one of the largest developments that this city ever sees in the rest of its history, I guess I'm a bit apprehensive about us approving this and then hoping things get worked out at the planning commission level. There's just a general concern that we're not maintaining our power as a city council to see this through, and instead it gets sent, if we approve it tonight, it gets sent to planning commission for their approval, and maybe none of the changes that we have put together in the summary that the city manager mentioned get taken into account. I know the development company sent us some notes and responses, but there's certain things like adding the living wall is nice, but there was no glass added to really the second level of building A, which is going to be the largest of all of them, I believe. But some added to building B. And so I guess I would at this point make a motion to table this until there's final site plan approval from the planning commission. And then we'll know exactly what we're working with. So that's my motion.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second? Again, we have a motion on the table to a motion to table this recommendation. All right, seeing no second, the motion dies. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 15, section 19 refers to reimbursement of the city of expenses, our out-of-pocket expenses, I guess, associated with the development of this project. It mentions not to exceed $100,000. And I won't bring up our engineering costs sometimes, but how did we arrive at $100,000 as an amount? Is that based on other projects of similar scope? I'm not even sure who to ask. Is that to City Manager Brown or to Ms. McIntyre, or how do we decide at 100,000?
We can tag team that, if you will. Here, I'll make an initial comment. Kelly can correct me probably when it becomes necessary. But my understanding of the way that $100,000 figure was arrived at was just a discussion about what the reasonable cost could potentially look like, and certainly they will not be beyond this kind of a figure, and that's why we landed at that particular figure. There's going to be stuff from our planning consultants. There'll be costs associated with our attorney. There'll be costs associated with engineering probably as well, with various investigations and determinations that had to be made, but we're confident that it won't be in excess of $100,000. And Kelly, I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
No, I think that's accurate. And I believe that that number was similar to something, or to the original GPD for the Menards property.
Do we have it? I mean, I don't know if that's a lot or not. I thought that when developers came in and they got their site plans approved, don't they pay the fees for engineering work and engineering reviews and all those things? But there'll be certain ones, I guess, occasionally where the city handles them outside of that process. Is that the idea here, the extra reimbursement? And how much do we have to reimburse from Menards if 100,000 was that, or how much do we have to ask Menards for? How do we even keep track of it?
Councilmember Sharp, can you give me the number, the item number in the agreement?
Item 19, reimbursable costs, page 15.
Okay. Thank you.
It's reasonable legal planning, engineering, and other consultant fees incurred. Do we keep a project tracker or something in the city, or how do we?
Well,
it's a lot of money. 100,000 is not insignificant. Sorry.
No, but this would be for the this would just be for the review and the approval. So once you are approved, once you start going into the construction, that's going to be different. The construction review of all the plans, that's going to be in kind of in a different category. The 100,000 is for the engineering, the planning, the attorneys, and just the original approvals, getting it approved. So I think that.
So just to kind of level set it for me, how much does this development contract cost of us, cost the city in terms of our attorney fees? Any feel out of the 100,000? How much have we spend on this?
I know the city attorney's already submitted some of her preliminary compilation of costs, if you will. I don't remember the figure, but it's not as big as you might think here. It's not, it's measured in a certain number of hours. We're not talking about something that's going to approach $20,000 or tens of thousands of dollars or anything like that. So we do have some of those kind of preliminary estimates already on what's been incurred so far from the city attorney. But Kelly's point is a good one to clarify as well. This is for the approval of the project. It's not for the construction. It's not for the permitting costs that are involved there. The permitting costs are going to be substantial on a project of this kind of scope. So, there's other costs that will come into play well beyond this $100,000. Unfortunately, from Flint development standpoint, but that's going to be something that's going to be cost of doing business kind of thing when the construction actually commences. This is just for the approval process.
So that ends tonight, basically, after we've approved this. Is that what this means?
It would go through, Kelly can correct me on this, but it would go through the planning commission action to approve the final site plan. Okay, so up through planning commission, final site plan, we'll get reimbursed for out-of-pocket expenses. The city will. Pursuant to this section of this development agreement, correct? Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Councilmember Berman.
I was just going to add, I'm pretty sure it's the ordinance that allows for the reimbursement of the costs. So for them going to get the plan unit development, that allows us to seek reimbursement of our costs to give them that plan unit development. And then obviously it doesn't go on to the next expenses. That being said, my only comments on this development is, quite frankly, I think it's one of the best uses we're going to get for that piece of property there. I'm excited to see construction start. I wish the developers nothing but the best, and I'm in support of this as is.
Councilmember Gremlin Fox.
Thank you. Just a question and maybe some clarification regarding Councilmember Gatchell's concerns. So once, if this is approved tonight and it goes back to the Planning Commission with our, with City Council's concerns and feedback, and then the additional comments that Flint Development made, the Planning Commission will get those comments, correct? So they know what to look for regarding all those comments. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Gatchell.
Thank you. The concern there is that there's no obligation that they act on them or see them through. And so that's kind of what happened with the VCA to a large extent, that a lot of the properties that are built now across from City Hall, that's not remotely what that was supposed to look like. And there were many more plans to continue on the buildings all the way down to the corner of Wixom Road and Pontiac Trail. But after things got approved, then Planning Commission back then and former staff started to allow things to change a bit. So that was my concern, is that we're giving up our ability to oversee things to Planning Commission. And while I respect them, it would just be nice that we were elected to look over this kind of stuff.
Any other, Councilmember Gremlin Fox?
Not to keep going back and forth on this, but is there anything that we can do to make sure that those same issues don't occur that Councilmember Gatchell was just talking about, to ensure that the Planning Commission respects and acts on what council had indicated they wanted to see?
Oh, I mean, staff review is going to be taking place prior to Planning Commission on an in-depth fashion. And that's where I would expect the lion's share of this heavy lifting of this kind of feedback being translated into the actual final site plan that gets presented to Planning Commission would take place. Your administrative staff is well aware of what's been said here. Planning staff is well aware of it. And we can have impact in those processes before it even goes to Planning Commission to ensure that those kind of things get addressed in a way that was consistent with what the direction was from mayor and council. So that's the level one of assurance you have that we can do something to get it addressed. And then Planning Commission is the final approval authority with the final GPUD site plan approval. So there's two different phases that this would go through. Not the initial, but the final staff review that's going to be taking place over the next 2 weeks, and then Planning Commission review and approval at potentially the March 1st meeting.
Right. Thank you for that clarification. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments before we move on? All right. I myself, I appreciate all the work that's been done through the city, and then with the developer listening to our comments, and I hope that our comments have been listened to, and when administration looked at these plans, when the plans are turned in, that we do not move forward until we get everything that we're looking for with all the comments that the city council has added, with all the requests that they have, that those requests have been met before we present this to planning. And if takes longer than it gets to the March 1st meeting, Well, but we're not going to rush this just to appease people, and we're going to get everything that's going to work out the best for both parties. So with that said, I've got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation of a development agreement with Wixom Logistics Park LLC for 104.4 acres of the former Ford Wixom plant property, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement with city administration to add final exhibits and record the agreement as appropriate. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gotcha.
No.
Councilmember Gretchen Fox.
yes,
Councilmember Sharp.
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley.
Yes.
Mayor Beagle.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman.
Yes.
6 yes, 1 no.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business number 2 is a recommendation to approve a contract with Trivium Racing Incorporated for timing services associated with the 5K and 1 mile fun run race to be held on May 1st, 2021, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign a contract on behalf of the city. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
support,
Thank you. With us tonight is our DDA Director, Laura Cloutier. And Laura, you want to give us a brief description of what's going on here?
Yes, this contract is for the annual Derby Day race that unfortunately we had to cancel last year in the height of the start of the pandemic. We have been working with Trivium Racing since the inception of this race. So this would be technically our 5th year of bringing this contract before you. And our 4th year really working with them since last year's race was canceled. It's a pretty standard contract. We are working with the race company. They've been holding races since the summer. So they have been really leading us on how to do this safely. And we are looking at staggered start times, limiting the number of racers. We've dropped the 10K portion just for this year to try to keep our numbers down a bit. So we are in the planning stages, and if this contract, gets approved tonight with your blessing, we can move forward and bring another great event to our community.
Very good. And council comments, Councilmember Berman.
I was just curious, with regards to last year's contract, was it the same as this one, that we were only out $150 because the event couldn't be held?
Yes.
Okay. So I have no problem supporting this. I just was curious if we paid them a lot more last year and got nothing. So
No.
thank you.
Deputy Mayor Resnick, and then I'll go to Councilmember Smiley.
Just one question on clause 8, the force majeure. Let's just say hypothetically that MDHSS, declares another inability to gather in large numbers, and we do have to cancel. Can that be included under it? Because it's not necessarily a national emergency, but the Michigan Department of Health might be declaring it.
Right. We can have them put that in there.
And I think, and Mr. Brown, you could clarify this. If the city has to abide by an MDHHS rule, is that considered a city type of emergency? I mean, I think it should be included under force majeure, right?
I think that I think that I see language that that covers us here anyway. It talks about the term force majeure shall include without limitation orders or acts or civil authority, and I think that's what would be subject to under the any declaration that we would have to cancel because of COVID-19 related restrictions. I think we would be covered by that language. So I think we're solid as is, frankly. Although I'm not an attorney.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that if we go through the next phase and then 2 days before the event.
Right.
Okay.
Right. It seems like the language is adequate to cover that outcome.
Right.
Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hello, Ms. Cloutier. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I just a couple little things. First of all, I'm really glad to hear Trivium Racing is helping sort of adjust or adapt us in this fun event for with the pandemic concerns. And to that note, did they help come up with the expected turnout number of 300? And is that
Yes.
kind of factored in the
Yes.
world events and all that? Is that a conservative number or just a realistic number, or how'd that number?
They feel that it's very realistic because people are looking for something to do outside. So they said that they feel that we will not have any problems hitting that 300 number.
Excellent.
And our committee felt comfortable with that number because our races typically fluctuate between 300 and 500 runners per year, depending on weather and
Based
what's
on the
going on.
previous years of the Derby, 300 to 500. That was my next.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, yeah. Hopefully it goes off without a hitch. Thank you. That's all I had.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Hey, Laura, I just have one. We're gonna, we'll allow walk-ups to register this year. You don't have to pre-register, right?
We are not allowing walk-ups because we are trying to eliminate too many points of contact.
Okay. Okay.
So everything is a pre-registration this year.
All right. Okay, good. We'll just have to remind the participants that are signing up for this to make sure that they do it online.
Yes.
Very good. Seeing no other questions, I've got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to approve a contract with Trivium Racing Incorporated for timing services associated with the 5K and 1 mile fun run race to be held on May 1st, 2021, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the contract on behalf of the city. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gretchen Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Yes.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Yes.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gacho,
Yes.
7 yes.
Very good. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business number 3 is a recommendation to authorize a resolution to adopt a revised policy relative to review and granting of financial/poverty hardship exemptions by the City of Wixom Board of Review. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Very good. City Manager Brown, you're up again.
Yeah, so this was a item that came before us because of some changes to policy related to bodies outside of the city. And there was a lot of discussion on this between us, our friends at Oakland County that serve as our assessor, and also our attorney. So the attorney made most of the determinations to what was needed to be changed here with our resolution. As you're aware, we started off with a set of corrections that was provided to you first, and then we came out with a revised version of it that added a couple more minor technical changes that came out of that exchange between Oakland County assessing personnel and our city attorney's office. So we had two corrections additionally that were added after the council packet was provided. The purpose behind this is changing to a different form, this 5737 form. And requiring some certain language changes that were necessary because of the guidance that we had and the stipulations that we had to become consistent with. So there's a variety of changes in here. This Form 5737 is going to become our application with a couple of additions to our form coming from our local practices. For example, there are income requirements to meet the limitations in order to be considered for these kind of exemptions. And we in the city of Wixom actually take a factor of 1.5 to the numbers that get used according to guidance from higher levels of government. So if it's 20,000, it's 1.5 times that, it's 30,000 for the city of Wixom. We also offer people the opportunity to get relief from waste collection fees, with a specific form that's provided as well as recycling fees. So essentially the garbage company related costs can also be reduced when people have hardship situations in the city of Wixom. So we have an application package that we have put together that if we're going to get approval tonight, that will include those additions to this form 5737 from the Michigan Department of Treasury that we will use as our application packet for people that are seeking the kind of consideration that would be governed by this policy. Beyond that, that's mostly what I want to say on that front, but there is one more unfortunate correction that was noticed after we put out the second correction. And on the first page of either document, whether you're looking at the marked up version or if you're looking at the final version, on any of the documents, there's an additional correction that we're going to be looking to make as well to bring to your attention. Under the therefore be it resolved section of the resolution, in the last bullet point on that first page, there's a typo in there where it says a copy of current driver's license instead of or of other form of identification. So that's just a minor correction to correct that typo there. It should say a current driver's license or other form of identification. So we'll make that correction, assuming that nobody has any objections to that. And that will be reflected in the final document that we provide to the bodies that need to see it. So that's the last thing that I wanted to say on that. Otherwise, we're open for discussion on this.
Good. Any questions? Councilmember Grenlund Fox.
Thank you. The county holds our board of reviews, correct? City Manager Brown?
We have a local board of review that conducts our business there. So we've got people that get appointed there by the mayor and with the council's support that would hear the initial request for a tax exemption and then grant it at that level.
Oh, great. Okay. Do we know how many applications we've had in the past for the hardship exemption?
I can't give you a very good, I can't give you an exact number, but it's pretty small. They're pretty infrequent. It's not something we see a lot of volume on.
Okay, great. That's all I have.
Sorry, I can't give you a precise number, but it's not a lot of activity.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Councilmember Gatchel.
Thank you. In looking this over, the one thing that came to mind was it was crossed out that medical expenses would be considered in the one section, but then in a section afterwards, it says that it added that the board has ability to review other circumstances, I guess. Is that covering the same thing? Would medical expenses be something then that they could review, even though we're removing medical bills above?
Yeah, so I know what language you're referring to, like in the be it further resolved, where it talks about a long list of things, earning capacity, medical conditions, couple more exact or a couple more precise examples of things. The language was just sort of part of the concern, I think, from the city's standpoint, and I think of this revision was to not put our local body in the business of becoming almost like a financial auditor of somebody. There were requirements in there that were pretty onerous that we've eliminated with this version of it, copies of tax returns and explicit numbers of copies and those kind of things. So I think it's just an effort to make it a little bit more general and less specified here, just because of the capacity or the level of work that could become necessary with some of this detail that was involved prior to this. The city attorney office, the representative from the city attorney's office that worked on this, they have a lawyer that's more specialized on real estate matters, and she was the one who handled this. And these revisions were her combination of the requirements that were coming out of this latest revision from other levels of government, and also the kind of things that we wanted to see reformed from our side of things, so that we didn't get ourselves into the position of almost functioning as a financial auditor on somebody and being required to get into that level of detail with somebody. So you're accurate that it's less detail, and I think that was purposeful.
But like this reference to as permitted by statute, nothing that the attorney made us aware has changed in in the law that would preclude our board of review from taking medical, like abnormal medical expenses is the wording used above, into account?
Right. It just provides a little bit more discretion as to what we're going to require from somebody in those circumstances.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was like a fair trade for the residents, and not removing something and not having an ability to account for it later. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly that's not our intent, because as I mentioned, we're much more generous in terms of the limitations that we place on people, the breaks that can be afforded to people when they have these kind of circumstances. So the intent is not to make it harder on residents that are experiencing difficult financial circumstances. It's just a matter of cleaning up some of the detailed nature of the language and making it a little bit more subject to discretion for our board of review, I believe.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I've got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to authorize a resolution to adopt a revised policy relative to the review and granting of financial/poverty hardship exemptions by the City of Wixom Board of Review. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Yes.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Godchall,
Yes.
Councilmember Gremlin Fox,
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. New business number 4 is a recommendation to approve the Oakland Together Restaurant Relief Program for cities, villages, and townships interlocal agreement with Oakland County, and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Very good. City Manager Brown, again, want to give us a little information on this, please?
Right. So as all of us are likely aware, there's been a lot of hardships imposed on businesses operating during the COVID-19 pandemic with restrictions and shutdowns. And the purpose of the Oakland Together Restaurant Relief Program is to provide some financial assistance to those businesses that have been impacted by these kind of restrictions and impacts that had nothing to do with their ability to run their business, but had everything to do with the restrictions and handcuffs that were placed on these businesses. So the purpose of this program is to provide some financial relief. There was a phase 1 of the program where specific equipment that was available through a county supplier was made available. And as we were involved with phase 1 and provided some equipment to a variety of businesses in town, there was costs that were associated with that would ultimately become addressed in the full program in a interlocal agreement. And basically, if we proceeded into phase 2 and participate in phase 2, that's where we would have to be participating by signing an interlocal agreement with Oakland County. And we are choosing to continue with our participation there and continue to help restaurants in need in the city of Wixom in phase 2, which could involve additional reimbursement activity of costs that they've already experienced with prior purchases that were outside of the scope of the Oakland County program. There's potentially monies available to fund acquisitions on a going forward basis as well. So both acquisitions and reimbursement monies are involved. And at the time we put this together, there was a draft interlocal agreement that was on the website for the restaurant relief program on the Oakland County website. And that was printed for attachment with your report and package for this agenda tonight. And subsequent to the release of that package for the council meeting, there was going to be action at the Oakland County level to finalize that draft interlocal agreement. There was not anticipated to be any changes. And that was happening on February 4th, and that did take place. To my knowledge, there were no changes, as I was told by people that did monitor the process at the county level. And there was a possibility that we'd have the agreement for you to see tonight, but basically the only change to the agreement is just going to be removing the draft background on the document. And then I will be signing the document exactly as it was presented to you. Otherwise, the wording is not going to change. So there's some requirements in there on the city's part to how we administer the monies, how we document actual expenses for businesses that are participating, how we make sure that they're being used in an appropriate manner and those kind of things. We're working with the city attorney's office on that as well in terms of developing some language to make sure that we cover our bases on that front. But in effect, we're basically just looking to participate in this program. It's about, my memory serves, it was $44,878 that was made available to the city of Wixom under the program. The initial phase that I mentioned earlier, where we took existing inventory that was made available through the county at zero cost, the charges to our program for what was participation levels of the various restaurants involved was in the neighborhood of $19,000. So we're talking about $25,000 and change that is available under phase 2 of this project for assistance to these businesses. So it's going to involve a little bit of work. Laura Cloutier and the DDA have been very involved with this and very helpful with the city in administering this and taking care of getting DDA businesses involved and participating that were interested. We've focused on the outside of the DDA area in terms of city staff, myself predominantly. And together we work through this and continue to work through this and continue to work towards providing some much needed relief in terms of funding and resources to these businesses. So that's pretty much all I had. If you have any questions on it, please let me know. We did put in an application for phase 2 to formally indicate that we wanted to proceed. And now the next step is to sign this interlocal agreement if we get approval from council.
Very good. And I do know that the businesses that were approved were very grateful that this program was there. We were able to help them out.
Right.
Councilmember Berman.
Just for informational purposes, can you share which businesses received and what they received? I've seen people share like, what is that? What drafting table was sharing with about the heater and whatnot? I presume.
Right. Yes, that's correct. I'm trying to pull up a spreadsheet if I can get down to the details here. I should have had it opened already. I apologize.
I guess my curiosity was more, I mean, are we talking about something that has been spread out through all of our restaurants throughout the city, or has it just been the DDA really that's been participating?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're familiar with the DDA business, many of the DDA businesses that are involved, you know, the drafting table,
Trails Edge Cafe.
Alex's. Yeah, go, Laura, why don't you cover the DDA and then I'll cover the other.
So drafting table received 8 outdoor heaters to benefit their outdoor seating. Trails Edge Cafe, I believe, received 3 heaters to benefit their outdoor seating. Wixom Station and Alex and Valari received the electrostatic cleaners and the solution that goes in that to help with sanitizing their businesses, and Trails Edge and Drafting Table received those as well.
Then outside of the DDA, we had participation with Red Olive, Shakers, with Wings, etc., Lena's Kitchen. There's been a variety of businesses that have been participating on outside of the DDA. It was intended for sit-down restaurant operations. We provided equipment that Laura mentioned. In some cases, it was the outside patio heaters and associated prepaid or refilled propane tanks that were provided to many businesses, electrostatic cleaners, greenhouses for the most part, and then a single igloo that was made available to us has also been installed. Wings, etc. has received several of those. Shakers ended up purchasing some of their own, like a rental of a tent, as well as igloos that were installed on their property. They've submitted documentation to me for reimbursement of those costs in this phase 2 of the program. So we're hopeful that we'll end up using as much of or all of the funding that's made available to us under this program, which is at $44,000 and change, $44,878, that is going to be utilized hopefully in its entirety. And we have a period of time that runs from July of 2020 through June 30th of 2021. So there's still future expenses that could also be incurred that could still be eligible for reimbursement under this project, for this program.
Thank you.
That's
for
a
that
list of
additional.
most of the stuff that was provided.
Thank you for that additional information.
Sure.
Councilmember Grenlin Fox.
Thank you. So I saw in the documentation that was provided to us how the cities, villages, and townships apply to be part of this, but I didn't see how the businesses, how it works with the businesses. Do they also apply? Is there an application process that they reach out to us, or how does it work?
In other relief programs that have been provided through the county, that kind of activity did take place. But I think in this circumstance, this Oakland Together Restaurant Relief Program, the focus was on making the city the single point of contact, right? So the DDA had to coordinate with the city to submit one single application as the official submitting agency for businesses affected in the city of Wixom. So we serve as the single point of contact. The city of Wixom serves as the single point of contact on this particular aspect of this relief activity. So it's a little bit different than prior aspects where businesses were going directly to Oakland County in some respects. This was funneled all through the city completely.
So any restaurant within the city of Wixom would contact us or the DDA and
Yeah,
request.
we were seeking out businesses and trying to make people aware of it, and then working with businesses that were, appropriate in terms of dine-in. The focus was on those kind of businesses, and that's how we settled on those kind of businesses that we just talked about. Teriyaki Madness is another. Urban Euro is another one that we solicited and asked if they're looking for anything, and they did receive an electrostatic cleaner as well. So there's been a few others that I didn't mention earlier.
So how is it determined which restaurants get what? So if we only had so many heaters, and if all the restaurants wanted heaters.
Right. So we
how
were
is it
looking for,
determined?
there's no special formula here. It was basically just reaching out to dine-in, sit down, dine-in restaurants. And I was basically looking for mostly non-franchisee kind of thing, just because of the limited access of equipment that we had, or the limited access to equipment and dollars that we had. So.
Okay.
That
I
was the
just would want to
general-
make sure it was fair,
Yeah.
that all the restaurants get a chance to get the heaters. They don't all, one restaurant doesn't get all of everything, and then the other ones aren't able to get different supplies. So there is a fairness component to it all.
We tried to be that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to approve the Oakland Together Restaurant Relief Programs for cities, villages, and townships interlocal agreement with Oakland County, and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Smiley,
Yes.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Yes,
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gotchall,
Yes.
Councilmember Grenlin Fox,
Yes,
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
7 yes.
Thank you. New business number 5 is a discussion on the fire department recruiting and staffing. And this was added to the agenda tonight by Councilmember Grenlin Fox. So I'll turn the floor over to her.
thank you. So it's been a while since we've talked about this, and I know the last time it came up, we were looking at revising the recruitment plan that was put out, and I was just wondering where that was, the status, and then how recruitment is going, if at all.
So just to address the general status on this, we've been addressing it through, there's a need to address certain things in terms of how we would proceed on changing our recruitment efforts, because there are things in our collective bargaining agreement related to residency and things of that sort. So that was going to become the focus point. In the interim, as we were getting started on that process, we had what I would characterize as a very big opportunity that came in the marketplace, if you will. There were paid on-call firefighters that had been working in our direct vicinity, who, for various reasons, I won't get into the details, had become what I would refer to as available or free agents, and still potentially interested in working in a paid on-call fashion in this area. So that was a real opportunity as far as the city saw it. As you know, one of the things that we were looking to address here was some staffing gaps that we have at different points in time during the work week on a scheduled basis, because we just don't have enough personnel to cover all of the shifts or all of those hours. So there was this news in the area where there were several paid on call firefighters who heretofore had been working for another agency. They were no longer, that put out the word that they were interested in potentially working with the city of Wixom. But in order to make that a reality, there was, again, a change to the collective bargaining agreement that had to take place. So we sat down and talked about it with fire department negotiating staff and the representation from the union. And we came down to a landing point where we would draft a letter of agreement that we would then submit to the union for consideration. We went ahead and did that. And there were basically two changes that would be involved. That would be the creation of an auxiliary firefighter position that would be intended to work only shifts. That would allow us to hire people that wouldn't be required to appear on an emergency basis, on a call basis. As the tones drop, the chief might correct me in my terminology. I try to get it right. But when the tones drop for an emergency need, that auxiliary firefighter position wouldn't be required to show to those kind of circumstances. In conjunction with that and in hand with that, we needed to have a change in our residency that would allow people to come from further out because of that new lessening of that limitation for that particular category of firefighters. So, theoretically, if you're going to have somebody come in and work shifts, you could have them come from a longer distance away from the city. So we needed to make those two changes. So in that letter of agreement, we proposed those major changes, and we provided that to the union membership. And then ultimately, we're waiting for a vote on that. It took a while for that vote to happen. We were informed just recently that the vote did happen, and it was unanimously rejected by the fire department membership. So now we're kind of at a point in time where we need to decide how we're going to proceed forward, because to my knowledge, there was no counter offer or proposal about how this could work instead of this. So now we're going to probably be faced with the prospect of getting together again to have another discussion with the union bargaining team to have a discussion about how we can take care of what's it's a historical opportunity to bring in several, up to 7, I think was the number. Chief, you can maybe correct me if I was wrong, but if there's like 7 people that would be fully trained and ready to begin work with us on a paid on call standpoint, and whatever basic requirements we would have to get past any kind of probationary period where they would learn the ins and outs of how we do business in the Wixom Fire Department. They were notwithstanding that very experienced firefighters that were ready to hit the ground running otherwise. So that's the current status on things. And I can let the chief weigh in if he wants to correct me, or we can take calls from council, whatever the mayor prefers here.
No, I think
So
you
without-
summarized it completely. Sorry.
Thank you.
So without getting into any labor issues, was there a common theme of why that would have been rejected?
I don't have any feedback on that at this point in time. I would hesitate to give any until we sit down and meet with them, and that's not where we're at. We need to get a meeting scheduled.
Okay, thank you. That's disappointing, but thank you.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yes. Councilmember Berman.
I was just going to echo the disappointment, given the fact that we had a substantial showing of the firefighters coming to our meetings and asking for us to give them the money to fill these gaps so we don't have the gaps at the station. We made that amendment, gave them the money, and then for them to reject that, really, and lo and behold, they're not coming to our meetings anymore. So it is just disappointing. And perhaps we need to start expanding our other options, whether that be working with other outside agencies or making some other changes if they're not going to work with us.
Councilmember Gatchel.
Thank you. I guess I can understand the position of rejecting what was put before them as a union with respect to not knowing how it's going to impact their current shifts. I think that's something that hasn't been worked out to a large extent because even I'm unclear at a council level. We've had a few discussions about it, but there hasn't been any final, here's the structure that we're going to bring people into, here's what we're moving over to. And so I think that might be somewhere that we need to get to, where we have a structure that everyone's aware of, that our existing firefighters are in agreement with, and then we can start adding people from there. If I don't get it or understand that there's an answer right now, then I can appreciate that they also don't understand it. With that respect as well, I think ultimately I would say it's either the mayor's choice or city manager's choice, but I would appreciate it if maybe a few members of council can be added to these meetings between city staff and the union moving forward, just so we can have a little bit of input, because I feel like this has been going on forever and I'm tired of getting everything third hand. For one, I think we could have probably already had this fixed a while ago if it would have been a much more direct conversation. So I'm not sure whose decision that would be, but I would appreciate that. I would volunteer myself for that opportunity as well, if we were to go that route. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yep, I'll talk to City Manager Brown after the meeting and we'll work something out.
Thank
Because
you.
I too, I feel the same way. I thought we had a direction and I thought we had an understanding of how things were going to work. And I guess to me, the most disappointing thing is a rejection and no counter of why, because we can't fix what we don't know how to fix things. So if I thought we had an understanding, the money was there, everything was there, we were ready to go. We came up on this I'll call it an awesome opportunity, and everyone was all excited. And then to hear no with no reasoning for it, it's kind of surprising to me. But I don't think it's anything that can't be worked out either. So, any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Councilmember Berman.
I mean, not to echo back to what I said earlier, but I do think we need to start looking at whether or not Commerce Township or Milford could provide coverage for us if our own fire department isn't willing to work with us to get 24-hour coverage. Obviously, my personal belief would be to stay in-house if possible and stay with Wixom doing Wixom, but I also think it's more important that we have 24-hour coverage no matter who's providing it for our residents.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think at the same time as right now, we do have the mutual aid agreement with Commerce and Walled Lake and surrounding communities. So I think we'll be okay there. We haven't had an issue yet, but I say we found out we had a gap. We're trying to fix the gap. I don't think that this is nothing that can't be worked out, but I think we need to have a better line of communication between the two parties. Because we can, instead of going out, okay, 1 second, Councilmember Gotcha. Instead of going out and that we could really fix this gap problem with one swoop with the 7 firefighters that are willing to come in. Councilmember Gotcha.
Thank you. I think just regarding the 24-hour coverage, I wanted to be clear, I guess, that we're not at risk of not having our own fire staff show up to a call. This is mainly about who's in the physical department station building, just for any residents watching or that might watch this later. We're not at risk of people not showing up to a call where we have to go to an outside city.
No, we have a very dedicated paid on call and we have a very dedicated fire staff. It's just we don't have enough to do a 24-hour coverage, and we're not what's the proper word here, I guess would be, our citizens aren't in that much of a danger as far as nobody showing up. It's just, we have a gap, and we would love to, we provide great services with our police department. We got a great, we're getting letters from our DPW about the service, but I think we also need to offer a 24-hour service to our fire department, with our fire department, to our citizens, and we owe it to our citizens for that. And we're working on that, and we'll get it done. But I don't think that, once the tone goes, our fire guys will drop what they're doing and come. That's not the issue here. No. Councilmember Grenland Fox.
Thank you. I would like to just point out, though, that response times are dramatically different when responding from your home, as opposed to responding from the station. When you're already there, you know that you're ready, you could get a call. So the response times are very different in the two scenarios.
Anybody else want to come in? All right, seeing none, I'll close that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Councilmember Grenland Fox. And next up is new business number 6. I do believe I'm going to need a motion to of a recommendation to set a public hearing for February 23rd, 2021 to solicit input regarding the utilization of the 2021 Community Development Block Grant Program allocation in the amount of $51,165. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Or,
Thank you. Councilmember Grenland Fox?
thank you. Just a quick question. I hope it's a quick question anyway. How is it determined which organizations come to council that will be funded? Is it like on a rotating basis that we just kind of rotate through those same organizations, or can you just shed some light on that for me?
What we've done in the past for the public service agencies is we've funded Haven on a regular basis, but when it comes to the emergency, the other public service agencies, we've tried to rotate it every other year.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councilmember Gacho.
Thank you. I guess just a part of the answer there is that in the past, everyone's been welcome to come present to council as well. But then, as Ms. McGee said, we do have been in the tradition of rotating who gets funds and whatnot. As she's explained to me in the past and others in the past, that we can only give to one group per category. And so that's a part of the issue. Sometimes there are a few groups in the same category, so we can't give it to all. And that's why we've gone to rotating, just to be fair.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments? Being none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to set a public hearing for the February 23rd, 2021 to solicit input regarding the utilization of 2021 Community Development Block Grant Program allocations in the amount of $51,165. Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Yes.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gacho,
Yes. Did that come through? That was a yes.
thank you. Councilmember Grenland Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. And that concludes new business tonight. We move on to the call to the public. I'll read the rules to the public real quick. The rules for the call to the public are as follows. The public shall address the council during call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence and again immediately after new business. First call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council. All comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. And the procedure for a public comment by electric means is once connected to the meeting, members of the public wishing to participate in a virtual public comment must alert us that they wish to speak by pressing *9 on their telephone keypad. Pressing *9 will activate the raised hand feature, signaling to us that you wish to comment. Participants will be called one at a time, as would happen during an in-person meeting when you are unmuted. Please introduce yourself by stating your name and address for the record. And then you have your 5 minutes. Do we have anybody for the second call to the public?
Again, press *9 on your telephone to raise your hand. We'll give it just a moment here. No one has raised their hand. Just one more moment. Again, *9 to raise your hand. No one has raised their hand.
Very good. I'll close the second call to the public and move on to city manager's comments. City Manager Brown.
So briefly on the council report, we had a couple of things that I wanted to highlight there that were already provided in writing, but I wanted to say it for the benefit of the folks that might be watching the meeting. We had 4 staff members pass the passport acceptance agent training refresher and maintain their ability to continue to service passport needs, although currently we're still on a hold pattern on that, but we will be ready to go when it becomes appropriate to pull that service back into the rotation. And that's Kathy Buck and Crystal Opalco, our clerk and deputy clerk, as well as Anna Kulis Rosenthal and Cheryl Lucas from the city manager's office that serve as a backup for those folks. So congratulations and thank you to those folks for following through and taking care of that and staying current on their qualifications to keep offering that service. And then the other thing that's in there as was promised that we would try to cover this kind of stuff on a once a month basis at least. We always hear a lot of anecdotal good feedback from folks about our DPW staff and the quality of the snow removal and cleanup process that we undertake in the city of Wixom. I do want to point out I'm going to provide something that was provided to a Prosper magazine, I believe it was, that speaks about you notice the difference when you come into the city of Wixom when there's a snow event. And that's something that I'm very proud of. The department's very proud of. The employees are very proud of. And I think people recognize and appreciate throughout the city as well. And we had a nice note from somebody on Facebook that a resident dropped on us that said, thought we would drop a line to thank whoever was doing snow removal in the Finn camp in that neighborhood today on January 26th. We thought you might appreciate an attaboy. Please pass this on to the driver to appreciate his efforts. So we're doing it in the most public fashion possible on that with this, talking about that nice piece of feedback that we received from a resident. We get a lot of that feedback actually on our snow removal efforts, and I just wanted to make sure we highlighted that with one of our early on comments from residents about things that that they appreciate from city services. So congratulations to Tim Sikma and to all the folks who work in the DPW to make that a possibility, from administrative staff to the people that are operating the plow trucks and the shovels and everything else there. Congratulations, great job. We appreciate it, and so do a lot of other people, as evidenced by that kind of remark. So that's all that I had, Your Honor. And if there's anything I can answer or address, I'd be happy to give it the best shot that I can.
Seeing none, I'll move on to council comments. Councilmember Smiley.
Just in case I needed to say this at the beginning, I'll just squeeze it in now. I'm attending remotely from my home in Wixom. Other than that, I'll just echo what Steve said, and sorry I was late today. That's it.
No problem. Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing to add for the team tonight. Thank you.
Good. Councilmember Gremlin Fox.
Thank you. I would just like to congratulate Kathy, Crystal, Anna, and Cheryl on passing the passport training. I'm sure it's going to start getting busy as people hopefully start traveling again. So I wish them luck. I'd also like to thank the DPW staff, all of the staff, for taking such good care of our roads, keeping us safe. I really appreciate all of their hard work. And then lastly, I would just like to have a shout out to anyone out there that may be listening that knows of someone that might be struggling, homeless, doesn't have money to heat their home, to remind them that City Hall is a warming station. So hopefully the word gets out. And don't forget your pets. Bring your pets inside because they get cold too. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Gacho.
Thank you. First, I wanted to thank all of the city staff and police staff and everyone for adding the mental health resources and everything to our website and starting to post that since our last meeting. I think hopefully it's helpful. Hopefully it's a message that we can keep getting out there every few months. That way everyone's continually aware of everything that they have, that they can reach out to help, whatever their circumstance is, whether it's domestic issues or drug addiction issues, that there's a lot of people ready in the community to help them. And then separately, something that came to mind, I'm not sure if anyone else saw it recently, but there was a story coming out of Florida regarding someone who had hacked the water system for a city and was increasing the amount of chemicals going into the water system. Luckily, it was caught. It was actually watched live, I guess, by one of their operators and then adjusted after it was changed. But I was just wondering, and I guess this would be a question for Mr. Sigma possibly, knowing that our water system runs through GLWA, do we have at a city level any sort of responsibility for the drinking water, or is that mostly handled through Great Lakes Water Authority? I know we manage our own wastewater, but wasn't exactly certain when it comes to water. I know we had to do a little bit when we had the boil water issue a few years ago, and that was coming from the water tower. But I just wasn't absolutely aware of what the situation was on a day-to-day basis.
On a day-to-day basis, on a day-to-day basis, GLWA does monitor, constantly actually monitor their systems for water quality. And we maintain a sampling program that follows the state guidelines for sampling on a monthly basis for several different factors or parameters. And we do, take every effort to make sure that the water is safe for drinking in all aspects. There are a number of ways. There are vulnerability assessments are continuously added and looked at and considered different ways that these types of people can try and get into our water systems. But right now we feel that we have a good system, and we monitor it through all the state and federal guidelines.
So as a city, though, we don't have any responsibility for added, like in this case, it was the addition of lye was, and you may have saw it.
Yeah.
Whatever the normal level is supposed to be 100 or something, and the hacker increased it to like 10,000.
Right.
And so we don't have any responsibility for treating the water before it gets to our households, correct?
Correct. That's correct. Yeah, and this was a sodium hydroxide that was actually added right at the treatment plant for settleability reasons, we're thinking. It's pH adjustments that they do at the different plants that GLWA has. And you know, prior to discharge, they're also monitoring those same chemicals as they leave to make sure that they're in balance and set up properly. So there's several people in the lab just constantly watching that stuff for us.
Okay, I appreciate it. I just wanted to, I guess, be clear and make sure that this was, I mean, it's always great to be aware of, but there's nothing where Wixom in particular is vulnerable with our system and needing to add something that's all handled outside of town, essentially. So.
Yes. We are, I guess, just as vulnerable as the other 126 communities that get their water from GLWA. But we are, there are several operators that are watching it, literally all the time.
Okay. I appreciate it. That's all I had. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Berman.
Thank you. Things you never pay attention to until you're on city council. The plow trucks going through your neighborhood and the number of times it takes them to plow the street. I noticed a couple weeks ago when it snowed, one of the wing plow trucks came through our neighborhood and it took 2 swipes to take care of our street, one on each side. And then when it snowed this last weekend, we had an older truck that came through without the wing plow. And it took them about 5 trips up and down the street to clear the snow. So I don't know the history on this wing plow thing, but I'd be in support of us eventually moving all of our trucks to the wing plow status.
I'm getting better. It's getting better.
I think you just got your council comments revoked.
Yeah.
Second thing I just wanted to mention, if I can still go on, Mr. Mayor, is
I'll let it go this time.
Last Thursday, it seems to be an ongoing issue, but it seems to be getting worse as of late. The rail line crossing Maple Road, they've seemed to been parking a lot of trains there lately, where they just leave them running for a day on end, where it's really, I mean, for anyone who's outside in the area, you hear these trains that are sitting there behind Millstream or behind my neighborhood, just running for 24 hours. And sometimes the engine revs like every 30 seconds or every 60 seconds. And it really is just a nuisance. But more importantly, beyond that, last Thursday morning, about 8:30, they decided to block Maple Road for about a half an hour. And there were 3 school buses lined up at the railroad crossing for half an hour. My children's school bus being one of them. And I mean, made all those kids late to school. There has to be something that, I mean, I know in the past, we've had a congressman write a letter on our behalf. They have to be taking this more seriously. Just parking a train and letting it sit there for a half an hour. It's more than just a nuisance. It's not safe for our children, and especially in the times of pandemic. Gosh forbid, a house on that side of the railroad tracks was to catch on fire. How much longer would it take for us to take the fire engine around the dirt road way to actually get it there? I just hope there's something we can do to make it extremely well known to Lake State Railway that this is just not acceptable for them to be blocking these our streets for an extended period of time, whether it's Maple or Pontiac Trail and Wixom. I saw Chief Roberts came on, so I wasn't sure if he had.
Yeah, if I may address, last Thursday morning, I was in contact with the rail dispatch center. There was a communication fault from the front of the train to the back of the train, front to rear. And when that happens, it's like the engineer thinks part of the train disconnected, so they had to stop. And it's a federal regulation that they can't go to the nearest convenient area. They have to stop the train. And the other issue with the engine running, the brakes on a train only work when the engine's running with the air system operating. So if the engine shuts off, the train could possibly move. So, and those are only things I'm just sharing with you because I'm aware that it happens. I don't like the fact that the train tracks are blocked either. They typically call ahead to our dispatch center and notify us that there's a delay in how long the train's going to be there. And they're usually about 50% right 50% of the time.
Yeah, well,
So-
I mean, I just noticed the Thursday situation with the school buses, and that train was sitting there, running for, hours before it decided to finally move. And then it decided to finally move, and then it stopped and just sat there for a half an hour.
The only thing I'd like to add to that discussion is to make sure that you encourage any residents that are being impacted by that to make sure they communicate to us about those circumstances. Because I have to say I haven't heard about those specific circumstances. So I'm going to check to see if we actually got contacted about those issues. But don't let up on that as residents that are impacted by that. If you see something going on like that where a roadway's blocked, if you see something like that where an engine's parked for a 24-hour period, 36-hour period and running and disrupting the neighborhood with noise, I encourage you to make a report to the city manager's office about that, because we were encouraged by recent results from Lake State Railway Company. It seemed like things had gotten quite a bit better. But I had basically said that I was going to take a very dim view and a very quick response to any kind of backsliding on that. So we need to be made aware of those kind of things so that we can quickly contact people about it and let them know that that's becoming an issue again. So don't let up on that from a resident standpoint. If you see something that's striking you as odd or incorrect or problematic, put a call into our office so that we can track it and act on it. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to complain about trains too, but I don't have to now. I wanted to thank, Oakland County for the Oakland Together Restaurant Relief Program for cities. I think it's a great thing. And one of the questions I had, Mr. Brown, I had heard some, the establishments that are using the heaters can only get propane replenishment Monday through Thursday. But one of the comments was the peak usage is on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Is there any way that could be looked at, perhaps in another safe place where they could be stored? So I don't know if that's been discussed between you and Laura Cloutier or anybody, but.
Yeah, we try to pick the best option from the city standpoint as possible. I mean, we realistically don't have 24-hour coverage there in any kind of a location that would fit. So that was the decision was made to place it where it is, which is at the police department in the fenced-in area behind City Hall there. And we'll continue to look at if there's a better way to approach that. But right now, we're just encouraging people to recognize that and take some extra canisters if possible into the weekend time period, or switch them out if you think you're close to empty on a canister and get a full one. I mean, we're just trying to do our best to work with this. It's not like, just not something we do, right? So it's a problem. So,
exactly. Yeah. Well, great. And also just maybe a reminder to fellow councilmen that, a number of years ago, as an efficiency action, we take and set public hearing dates in the consent agenda. And then when that public hearing and the agenda item comes up on our agenda, that's when we debate the item. So I know that we do that for a lot of different public hearings now. And, we see it through our legislative calendar that the setting of the public hearing date goes in the consent agenda. So just as a reminder. That's all.
Very good. Thank you. All right. And I too would like to congratulate Kathy, Crystal, Anna, and Cheryl for completing and passing their passport acceptance agent training refresher courses. And hopefully one day the city can get back to issuing passports. We're not doing it right now because of COVID, but I'm sure we'll get back to it one day. And as far as the DPW, thank them for the great job they did on the roads. And, this time I understand we issued numerous tickets for parking in the road, so we could use our wing plows to the fullest capacity that they could. But through my walks through my neighborhood in Wexford, now I'm noticing that, our guys are busting to make sure the roads are clean, but the people are blowing the snow back into the streets when they clean the driveways. And I don't know, maybe Tim, can you, I know it adds a little bit more work for you guys, but maybe the next day after a snows issue, when we have to plow, could you just have one of your guys drive through the neighborhoods? Because, that's as big as a nuisance to me as parking a car in the street, and having the plows go around it we're paying and we're plowing, and these people are saying, how great the roads are, and then they're throwing their snow in the roads and blocking it for the next person. So, I don't want to seem like I'm being a dictator or anything, but if we're going to move cars, we got to also talk to these people about blowing their snow back into the roads. So if we could just keep an eye on that and see what it is, and maybe it's not as bad as I think it is, but I know my neighborhood, it seemed pretty bad. But bad might only be 3 or 4, but that's 3 or 4 people more than I think should be doing it. So, well, yeah, thank you guys for us. Yeah, and I did get to see the wing plow in action in my subdivision, and it was pretty good. He even came about 2 inches from, I live on a corner and I've got the sticks up. He came about 2 inches from the stick. So whoever it was, he gets an A in my book.
I'll pass it along. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Support.
Support.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Very good. Everybody stay warm, stay safe, stay healthy, support local. Good meeting. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Good night,
Take
everybody.
care.
Good night.
Hi, folks. Thank you.